Thanks for joining us for our Chamber Connection podcast. Thanks to our friends at Speakeasy, we are here for the next 52 weeks, bringing you guests from around our community, elected officials, business owners, folks doing great work here in Macomb County. So sit back, take a listen, and we hope you'll join us every week for our Chamber Connection. Hi, thanks for joining us on our latest edition of the Chamber Connection. My name is Stacy Ziarko, and I'm the president and CEO of the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce. My guest today is Luke Bonner, the Senior Economic Development Advisor from the City of Sterling Heights, and as he reminds me all the time, more importantly, my friend. So it's very exciting. Thanks, Luke, for being here today with us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, we talk all the time about, Sterling Heights is a very desirable community and a great place to be. You've been with the city for how long now?
Oh, let's see. 6 years as a full-time employee and now 8 as a contracted economic development consultant. So a long time.
Long time. So I'm going to call you the expert on all things
Whoa.
economic development in Sterling Heights.
Fair enough.
So, first of all, people tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you first.
About me?
Yes.
About me personally?
Both. Tell me about, professionally and personally.
Oh boy, this is not a good topic for me to talk about. Well, personally, Sarah and I have been married for 19 years this year. My son Noah is 16. He's a sophomore in high school. My daughter Anna is 13. She's an 8th grader. We're generally a very active family. The reason I'm a contractor, let's say,
Sure.
I left Sterling Heights in 2011 to go work for Ann Arbor Spark, which is a regional economic development organization based in downtown Ann Arbor. Worked there for 4 years and decided I wanted to start consulting. And honestly, it was the timing was serendipitous with coming back to work with Sterling Heights. They actually had posted a job opening for their economic development manager. And I have a great relationship still with leadership and elected leadership and city management. And I called Mark and I said, hey, look, I just started a consulting company. Do you guys need any help? I noticed you posted a job. Like, I can help you hire somebody. I can help you do strategic planning work. And he said, well, can you do the work? And I was like, you know what? Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. So we did.
Was Sterling Heights your first client?
Sterling Heights was not my first client. Sterling Heights at that point was my 4th client.
Oh.
Which is okay. It's all good. But I had enough to start kind of doing my own thing at that point. But it just kind of fell into place. And I always say this about Sterling Heights. I mean, I feel so comfortable with city council. I feel so comfortable with city management and other directors and managers. I consider it more like family than anything else. It's just so easy to work with everybody there. Everyone understands what my role is, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. But fundamentally, doing economic development in the city is an easy job to do from my perspective because everyone works so well together, and I have a ton of respect and admiration for the job that everyone at the city does, and it's just very helpful to get a job done like that.
So for those people not in the know, what is economic development?
So economic development, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Economic development historically, if you want to go back to like the turn of the century, was all about putting in rail lines and bridges and deep water ports, to bring more goods and services to an area, which then started creating jobs. Economic development has changed so much. When I first started working in economic development, in 2000 to today, I mean, it's a short period of time, relatively speaking, but it's changed so much. And the way that I kind of look at economic development is it's all about improving the lives of people that live and work in a community. Mm-hmm. So, but that also then means a lot, right? So, just 7 or 8 years ago, economic development was very focused on retaining businesses in a community. Right, so making sure you have really good relationships with your core business base because they're expanding all the time. They're growing, they're moving around. You want to make sure that's all kept within your boundaries. And then there's a big emphasis on attracting business to the community. So who's new, right? And that still tends to be like the sexiest thing in economic development. That's what people really hang their hat on. And I know, just in this last year, the state of Michigan has made more changes to attract more business to the state of Michigan. Attracting companies to a community is very hard to do. But if you do your blocking and tackling really well, and I know Mark Vanderpool, the city manager, knows that I believe in like the blocking and tackling, the core basic things. You do the basic things really, really well, and you can have a really good, strong, thriving community. So now economic development is starting to morph into community development, right? How do we make better sense of place in our neighborhoods and in our major commercial centers? Economic development has morphed into talent development, talent
Big topic
attraction,
right about now.
talent retention, right? Those are all things historically that economic development has been involved with, but now it's paramount because companies need people to hire, right?
Yep.
They need people with certain skill sets. They need to attract people to their businesses and keep them there. Companies want to be in good communities, right? That have great community amenities like parks and good infrastructure and good retail and good shopping and good neighborhoods. So now all of these things kind of roll up into economic development. The fun thing about Sterling Heights is everybody is sort of in the economic development mindset, if you will.
Absolutely.
Everyone's got a key piece of it, whether it's engineering, building, planning, community relations. Everyone's got a piece, Parks and Rec, everyone's got a piece of economic development. And I think everyone generally understands how all of these pieces work together to benefit the community, which then helps goes a long way for attracting businesses to your community and attracting residents to your community, which are a big deal.
So, how many communities throughout Michigan are working, with an economic developer like yourself?
So it's
how many of them have one on staff, solely dedicated to their community?
It's different for everybody. So a lot of communities will rely on the county government to be their economic development voice, if you will. But if we're starting to get into weeds a little bit, sorry, I tend to do this sometimes. The one thing about city government is that everyone has sort of an enforcement responsibility. I'm enforcing an ordinance, or I'm enforcing the master plan, or a zoning district, or I'm enforcing public safety. And so a lot of times what cities will do is they'll have someone who is from one of those other areas to be their economic development person.
Okay.
And I think economic development needs to be someone who's not in city government, technically speaking,
Sure.
right? Who tends to be more outward, more forward thinking, who tends to be more business development oriented, not sales oriented, business development oriented, which is establishing relationships, being more strategic, thinking more long term, but then also having the ability to pull disparate pieces together to make something happen. And I think a lot of times communities are relying on people that have worked in city government to be their economic development person, and then you end up being like almost like a caretaker of the position. Versus I think communities that do it really well are going out and hiring experienced economic development people with certain certifications and that sort of thing. So when I actually hired with Sterling Heights, 2006. Whoa.
How old were your kids?
I had one at 6 months old. And now he's 16. Holy cow. So there was requirements to have certain certifications. And I have two, International Economic Development certification and National Development Council finance professional. Those are helpful in just kind of the field overall. Like a planner would be AICP, certified sort of thing. So so not every community has an economic development person. Sometimes a community will have their planner be the economic development person. Sometimes the community will have their engineer be the economic development person. But there are more than a handful of communities that actually have like a real dedicated and trained economic development manager or director within the organization.
So as you talk to businesses, as they're, looking to come to, let's say, Michigan overall, why do they want to come to Sterling Heights? What do you tell them that makes us different than other communities where they can hang their shingle?
Well, businesses Businesses will go where they know they're going to be supported in a couple of ways. Number one, they're going to be supported by the community. Companies love it when they come into a situation and the community really embraces them, right? It just makes it better for the relationship right
Sure.
off the bat. But they also come to a place where they know there's infrastructure, right? Where they know that there's buildings, where they know that they can hire people. Those are extremely important. So when you look at Sterling Heights, I mean,
They've got it all.
They have all of those things.
Sure.
Great location in terms of being like in the middle of such a density of people and population and demographic, meeting like average household incomes and education levels and that sort of thing. So there's confidence with a company locating here because they have confidence they will be able to hire somebody. There's great industrial and commercial real estate here. The infrastructure is great. I know we were talking before we jumped on the podcast about, it's winter and, how communities are taking care of the roads during the wintertime. And like
Everybody does it differently.
you hit Sterling Heights and it's like, did it snow here?
Right.
Did it rain here? Was it even cold? Because they always take care of the roads. Those are like really big deals. As a business owner, you're driving to your office every day. You notice stuff like that.
Yeah.
You really do. You'll notice if something is dirty. You'll notice if the grass is too high. You'll notice if there's a vacant industrial building on the corner that's run down and nobody's taking care of it. Those are really important things because if I see it, my employees see it, and my customers see it.
Sure.
And Sterling Heights, just from like a nuts and bolts, taking care of very important details in the community is like phenomenal. Better than anybody else.
And that means a lot to a business owner.
It does, absolutely. So as you know, like right now, the Mound Road reconstruction project is going on. And that was it was a big team effort with a lot of businesses along Mound Road.
Sure. Because it's very impactful to those businesses.
Very impactful. And I mean, we had companies that basically told us, there's a semi truck that hit a pothole so hard that it shook the foundation of their building and cracked one of the windows on the second story. We had a company, aerospace company, that says, I'm bringing guys from Boeing, Airbus, and GE to my facility. And they're making jokes about how bad the road is.
Sure.
Right? This is a big deal. So a team effort with those businesses who literally wrote letters, went to Washington, D.C., said we need this to happen for us to continue to flourish, and we were successful. Now the road's going to go under construction. But part of that, getting back to just the magnitude of economic development in the city, part of those conversations that we had with the federal DOT, the Highway Administration, was how powerful the industrial corridor is. And the story that we told included, everything from 696 up to M59. So that spans Warren and Sterling Heights.
Sure.
But like gross regional product for those two communities is larger than 10 other states' gross regional product, which is crazy to think about, right?
Wow is right.
Which means the amount of employment, the amount of goods and services imported and exported, which is a staggering number. In Sterling Heights alone, there's $30 billion of imports and exports every single year from companies just in the industrial corridor, which is that 6 mile stretch. Those are powerful numbers. That means we have great companies building great things that the world needs and demands, right? So, so very important. Again, just, the blocking and tackling of the details of taking care of a community that Sterling Heights is like lights out on.
What are some big wins that Sterling Heights saw this year in terms of businesses coming into the community?
So I look at wins a little bit differently than everybody else. I mean, sometimes you can look at a win as, we got a big plant opened. One of the biggest ones I think is McLean Fogg, which is a couple doors down, because they are doing advanced manufacturing is like economic development. It's a huge term, means all kinds of stuff. McLean Fogg has an additive manufacturing R&D center down the road, which means they are taking different types of materials. They're using 3D printers. How do we do things more efficiently, more durable, create more value? And having them there actually is leading to another major win that I can't talk about yet, but is another.
Luke has all the good scoop.
I've got too much scoop. Which is going to lead to another major win of another large-scale 3D printing, additive manufacturing facility.
So it's a snowball effect
It's a snowball effect.
that people want to be here.
Correct. So those, I think, are extremely important. DCS opened an engineering and R&D center on Center Drive. They're a defense contractor. Defense contractors are the well-kept secret, I think, for this area, right? The rest of Michigan doesn't understand. Well, I shouldn't say the rest of Michigan. It isn't common knowledge we have so much R&D in defense manufacturing here.
Yep.
And we
you're
have
right.
for a long time.
Defense corridor.
The defense corridor, or the arsenal of democracy, right, as Ron Lamparter has coined it. And so DC3S is a company like that. We have another military company that I can't talk about yet that's coming in.
You're going to help me convince all of them to join the chamber, right?
Sure. So I'll start working for you guys too.
Thanks.
No problem. So those are a couple that have been really, I think, good wins. They go under the radar though, right? Because
Sure.
we're off a 19-mile road. The general population of the city doesn't come down here all the time, right? Or the other ones on Center Drive. Those are big wins to me.
Oh.
But the other big wins that everyone likes to see are things like Mission Barbecue or Total Wine.
What did you tell
or-
me about the Total Wine?
Total Wine is the number one total wine in the country.
Thank you,
And
Macomb County.
That is according to their landlord as of a couple of weeks ago. Not surprised.
Not
right?
at all.
So,
If anyone was there when they first opened, their shelves were stocked. 2 weeks later, I mean, they were struggling
they're
for
struggling
inventory
to put product
because
in
they
there.
were just selling out so
Yeah.
fast.
So and then Jollibee is another one.
It's huge.
Right? Which
People
is
are
a
so excited about
big
Jollibee.
phenomenon that I don't really understand, but
We will.
people do, and they follow it and they love it, which is great. But so when I talked about like the McLean Fogs of the world or the DC3s of the world, or DCS, I'm sorry, the byproduct of having good companies in a community, which means that there are good people living in a community, which means then retail tends to follow all
Sure.
of that, right? So we want to follow the density of where all the people live, where all the incomes are, where all the education is. That's why M59, especially M59 in Shaner, you drop a pinpoint, that is like the best demographic, probably
It's the most desirable location in Southeast Michigan.
probably in the Midwest. When you look at it from a pure consumer spending standpoint, you have everything there. You have so much support from buying power and demographics and incomes and everything else that support
And
all
the
of those
traffic. I
things.
mean, the amount of cars
the
that drive by
traffic.
something that would be located.
110,000 cars a day on M59, which is the same amount of cars that travel at 94 and Telegraph through Wayne County. It's staggering, the amount of people that are here
Sure.
in large amounts and huge densities that spend a lot of money, which is good. And that supports your retail and other lifestyle businesses.
So, there's always those places that we want to come here, right? There's always the rumors of those other grocery store chains that we hear about. Why do they choose not to come here?
So, I think sometimes we always tend to look at things that we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
We want other stuff. I call them the bright, shiny objects. It's a term
Yep.
that's used all the time.
Absolutely.
I want this, I want this, I want this. But actually, if you look at what you have, I feel like Macomb County's got some of like the best local homegrown grocers
I
around.
wholly agree.
Vincent Joe's, Rendazzo's,
Ventimiglia's.
Ventimiglia's. So we have a lot of those.
Absolutely.
Right? Nino Salvaggio's, which obviously is expanding in other places. But those are really great markets. And I can tell you're probably not missing a whole lot by not having, two of the big ones, like the Trader Joe's and Whole
Right.
Foods of the world.
It's just a question we get asked a lot.
You're probably not missing anything.
No.
You probably have better stuff at these places. And so what I understand, because of course, when somebody at the city wants to understand what it would take to get a retailer like that, I look into it. I'll do some exploration. And to be quite honest with you, what I hear back is because there are so many grocers already in Macomb County, we're not sure how we fit. We're not sure.
So they acknowledge that we have such a unique population of grocery too, as well.
Not sure if we'll be successful,
Sure.
right? Which I agree with. I kind of feel like if a Trader Joe's were to open here, I don't know how successful it would be.
Sure.
Because I feel like everyone here already has the places that they go to and they love them, and they're super
Successful.
They're super successful. They're dependable.
They're diverse in their product line.
Consumers are very loyal here. that I don't know how good it would do, right? So that's the fear. If I open a store and it closes,
Sure.
that nobody wants that.
I think that just shows us that we have what other people desire, right? In terms of, those businesses that have been here forever, the businesses that have, been part of our local economic, culture for so long, it's a unique value proposition that Macomb County has that other
Absolutely.
communities don't.
Totally agree.
We talked about M59, super desirable area to be. There's a big project on M59 that comes up in conversation a lot.
There is?
There is. There's this, piece of property. I think it's around 110 acres, and
Lakeside.
yeah.
The mall.
When I went to college, where I went to college, the first year that I was there, it was also 110 acres. So that's a big piece of property. If a college institution can fit on that size of property at one point. Granted, it was 20 some years ago. But talk a little bit, tell us what you can. I don't think anyone's not paying attention in the city, in the county. I think we realize that, it's there and we need to work, help make it better. So talk a little bit about what's going on that you can.
Well, Lakeside has gone through a total life cycle since, 2000, really kind of since 2003. So I started working for the city in 2006. 2003, Rouse sold Lakeside to General Growth Properties.
That was when I started my first job at Lakeside Mall 2, was in 2003.
So who owned it then? General Growth or
General
Rouse?
Growth.
General Growth. So, and then over that time period, and really kind of even before that, I can go really deep on shopping centers. I mean, I could talk an hour on shopping centers. We've learned so much over the last 8 or 9 years. Malls were declining everywhere.
Sure.
Already beginning back in 2003. In 2006, 2007, Partridge Creek opened, right?
Yep.
So Taubman, who built Lakeside, built Partridge Creek. And the purpose was to capitalize on the market here, right, on M59. So when we were at, the city basically looked at it as, okay, there's intense competition for retail. We kind of felt retailers would leave Lakeside to go to Partridge Creek. So we did what we could at the time, which is we created a principal shopping district. We improved all of the roads leading into Lakeside. Part of that improvement is being able to turn left out of those retailer driveways or turn left into those retailer driveways that wasn't there before. Major beautification process, new street lighting, signage, all that stuff. So that was in response to major competition coming down from down the street. So over that time then, you had an economic recession. During that economic recession, General Growth Properties filed for bankruptcy. When General Growth emerged from bankruptcy, the only suburban mall asset they had in their portfolio was Lakeside. So we saw that. And it's like, I think Lakeside is going to struggle because department stores were already starting to close. Sure. Shopping centers were already starting to perform
Online
poorly.
shopping was also starting to increase at that point as well.
Online shopping started to really increase. Absolutely. So, so in 2015 is when we were like, we need to what are we going to do? So that's when we created the first kind of master plan of, you got a 110 acre site. How would this be developed today? All things being perfect. And, we took that plan to General Growth Properties and showed it to them, and they're like, actually, if we were developing this mall, this is how we would do it today. They couldn't do it, okay? They weren't going to do it. It's a suburban mall. They wanted to get rid of it. The writing was on the wall. Everything that we talked about in that meeting was pretty much like, we're going to walk away from this thing. And literally a year to the day, they walked away from it. They turned the keys over to the bank. Bank hired a special servicer to manage the mall until it could be sold. It was acquired about 3 years ago now by Lionheart Capital out of Miami, actually acquired by one of their subsidiaries out of the Box Ventures. So the good thing about that is that we actually had somebody to work with who wanted to do stuff at the mall. So for the past, maybe it hasn't been quite 3 years, end of 2018. So for the past couple of years, oh my gosh, time is really flying. We've had almost weekly, almost daily conversations with Lakeside about a lot of it is fact finding, a lot of it's information gathering, a lot of it is sharing research that we've done on the mall, the master plan that we did back in 2015. And what they've been doing is gathering information on the market, right? Understanding how, in their portfolio, they're buying properties like this to reposition them. I don't want to say necessarily redevelop them, but add more value to them because properties like these are usually in the best locations in a community. They were a center of commerce for a long time. So how do we, speaking on like Lionheart's behalf, how do we take this asset that's in a really good demographic and a really good location and continue to add value to it
And make it something people want to be a part of.
and draw more people
Yep.
to it? Because they still have retailers there. They've got a couple of department stores that are still there. They
Yep.
have inline retailers there. So how do we add value to this mall to make it sustainable long-term financially? And then for us, that means for the community. Now, funny thing is, despite the mall it's on an island, right? It's back off of M59. You've got 2 department stores that have closed. Sears and Lord & Taylor have closed. Macy and JCPenney are still doing really well in terms of those department stores. Macy and JCPenney overall not doing well and have closed a number of stores and will continue to close stores. These 2 continue to do well, though. And then you've got all the action on M59 and Shaner, right? So there is a demand for space. There is a demand for retailers to go in those areas. So now it's like, okay, how do we take Lakeside and really kind of integrate it truly
into that corridor,
into M59 and Shaner to start to add to the mall, to increase the value, to add density and that sort of thing. So, we've been talking to them for a long time. I'm hopeful this year they'll be able to announce, what is our plan for the shopping center.
I think that's
going
what everyone
forward.
wants to hear. I think as you talk to people in the community, it's a topic of conversation. What's going to happen? What's going to be there? When you watch places like a Jollibee and a Total Wine and Portillo's open up right outside of all of those things, that people want to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
And now we have more people going to those places, which hopefully we can drive traffic then to whatever Lakeside Mall becomes.
Absolutely. And I think our approach to this has been an aspirational one.
Sure.
It's been a long-term view of it. And I think Lakeside's has been too. There are easy things to do today. It's easy to put an industrial facility there. It's easy to put a warehouse there.
That's sad.
But those are easy things to do.
Yeah, we don't want to do the easy way.
And we want to do hard stuff because in the long term, the hard stuff is going to make everything so much better and so much more sustainable. So,
and I think one of the reasons this has taken so long is you are doing the hard stuff and you're doing it right.
Trying to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the goal. So, I'm hoping this is a big year for Lakeside in terms of future vision being sort of unveiled to the public.
And on that note, as we wrap up, talk a little bit about what are some things that we can all get excited for in 2022 and beyond for Sterling Heights.
Oh, the thing that's exciting about Sterling Heights is you can do almost any development here. Every market segment right now is hot. Mm-hmm. Sterling Heights can support almost anything. So I get excited.
Clearly, we can support the wine store.
Obviously, yeah. There's a lot of drinking going on, so that's a good thing. So what I get excited about is mixed use developments. Now, historically in Michigan, and I specify in Michigan because it isn't like this everywhere else, but historically in Michigan, suburbs do not have mixed use developments. Okay. And since Detroit has sort of gone through this evolution the last 15 years where urban living has become a very hot real estate development market.
Absolutely.
Now you're having a generation of people that are experiencing that maybe have lived there and now are maybe moving out. So as people are beginning to move back out to suburbs from urban living, there is an expectation that they will have the same amenities that they have in the urban setting. Experienced. So that's pushing now for more urban amenities in pockets, infill redevelopment opportunities in Sterling Heights. And there's been a few on Planning Commission. They still have to move forward through the approval process to City Council, but one of the more public ones has been the mixed-use development on M59 at Sterrett. That's a multi-story, sort of urban loft-style apartment building with retail down below and retail in front of M59. We will see more and more projects like that, and there are more and more coming like that. So I think that's really exciting. I think the demographic of the community continues to improve. I think you will see different retailers continue to come into the city. The investment the city made in Parks and Recreation, I think, was huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Both from people wanting to be in Sterling Heights and also businesses then wanting to be where those people are.
And people staying in Sterling Heights,
absolutely.
Which is a really big deal. So that was huge. So, with a project like that, it just helps stabilize the demographic, and then the city's population continues to grow. So I would expect that we would see new and different retailers and restaurants, like we have. BJ's Brew Pub is different. You and I go there for lunch and
Yep.
dinner. That crowd is electric sometimes, right?
It's packed.
It's packed. It's a great crowd. So that success means that other people will take notice, and then you'll see other restaurants like it. So I think that's a really big deal.
Most restaurant owners will tell you they want the other restaurant to open up next to them because that you're not going to go to the same restaurant 5 days a week.
Right.
So you might go to their restaurant and on purpose, but then see that they're next door.
First Watch is another example.
Absolutely.
First Watch is a national chain, but the type of food they offer there is more organic, more natural, right? More cleaner, healthier options.
Absolutely.
You don't see that everywhere. So that's new. So I think you'll start to see more brands like that. More mixed use developments on the docket for Planning Commission and City Council review for approval. And then I think that we'll continue to see more advanced manufacturing type of businesses come in. So not the traditional manufacturing, meaning we're stamping out parts or producing parts, but operations that are adding a lot of value to the part that they're making, or a lot of value to a part that somebody else is making. I think we'll see more and more of that.
So I think what I took away from this conversation today, Luke, is good things are coming to our community.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here
Thank you
today,
so
sharing
much.
your insight. I think Luke will be back because I want to talk more about retail. It is a spot near and dear to my heart, as I probably consider myself the professional shopper. So I want to know where I can shop. But thank you for joining me
That's good.
today.
I'm not the professional shopper.
I
And
can
yes,
train
thank you. And when you asked me a couple weeks ago, I got really excited.
Luke is
So
geeked out about
Thank you so
this.
much for asking me to come in. This was
We're
awesome.
excited he's an integral part of our community and kind of a, part-time chamber staff person. So thank you and
Thank
enjoy,
you.
and you all have a rest of the good day. Thanks for tuning in to the Chamber Connection. Be sure to check out information on the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce website, our Facebook page, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We look forward to you connecting with us and tuning in next week.